Hello and welcome back to the Rainbow Library. Today I'll be sharing some of my favorite books of 2020. I'm going to start off with 3 honorable mentions and I'll try to keep them quick. First I have Under the Rainbow by Celia Laskey. I believe this was a debut novel and it came out either in 2020 or 2019. So the premise of this story is that there is a town which is ranked on a website as one of the most homophobic towns in America. And because of that, there is a task force sent in to try to diversify this town and make it less homophobic. So the task force consists of entirely of queer people that are asked to move into this town. And then the premise goes from there. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember a lot of details from this book, and that's why it's an honorable mention and not a favorite. But I read it in just a few hours. It was really fast. It was really gripping. I remember liking the characters a lot and the story. So I would highly recommend it if you're looking for anything, if any of that sounded good to you. Next, I have A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. This is an honorable mention because I really liked most of the book, but then the ending, there was kind of a tonal shift, for me at least. And so I didn't really like the ending that much, although, it was fine, but I didn't love it as much as the rest of the book. And that one has a very complicated premise, so I'm not even going to try to summarize it because I know I will have to stop recording and do it all over again because it's difficult to explain. My last honorable mention is a middle grade novel called Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. And that one it's very queer and it centers around, so there's this young girl, I believe she's a girl, and she is kind of selectively mute. She only talks sometimes, and then other times she uses sign language. And she lives in this town where they have supposedly gotten rid of all the monsters, all the bad people. But then they kind of find out that that is not exactly the case because this mythical creature named Pet comes to life from one of her mom's paintings. And it goes from there. And I really liked this book a lot, but it wasn't quite a favorite of the year for me. But I definitely wanted to give it a shout out, although I think it was pretty popular. But if that sounds interesting to you, I would highly recommend it. Okay, so now getting into my actual list, I have 6 books that were my favorites of 2020. So number 6, I have a biography of Lorraine Hansberry. That's not the title. The title is Looking for Lorraine, and it's written by Imani Perry. And this one is a little bit lower on my list because again, I don't remember a lot of the details, but I remember enjoying every moment of this, and I really like Lorraine Hansberry. I think she was a fascinating person, and I also read a lot of her plays this year. I considered putting some of them on this list, but I felt like the biography, I wanted to choose the biography instead because I just felt like it gave a better overview of Lorraine as a person, and so that's why I chose it. Number 5, I have Weather by Jenny Offill. So this one is kind of a, I want to say apocalyptic, but it doesn't, take place in apocalypse. It takes place in our world in 2016, but it kind of feels like an apocalypse because, with the 2016 election. And so I don't believe it actually says by name, but you can definitely tell, it's very obvious that the book is in reference to the 2016 election. And it deals with environmentalism, climate change a lot, and anxiety. So it was, and the writing style was really, really unique. That was something else I wanted to mention. So I will definitely be reading more of Jenny Offill's work, and I would highly recommend it because it's such a unique reading experience. And I think that it goes by really quick, and I think that hopefully you will find something enjoyable in it if it sounds interesting to you. So number 4, I have another queer debut novel. This is Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jedrowski. And so this one takes place in Poland. I think it's Poland. And it follows these 2 young men, and they end up falling in love, and they kind of discover their own identities through the work of James Baldwin, specifically his book Giovanni's Room. And so Swimming in the Dark actually kind of mirrors Giovanni's Room in some ways because there's the whole aspect of one of the characters is in love with a man and a woman at the same time. It's not exactly the same as Giovanni's Room, but, there's kind of that idea there that's present in the book. And so basically these two young men fall in love, and we see them as they grow up and grow apart. And I found this really, really emotional. Just everything about the themes that were present, it just really connected with me. And so I would highly recommend it. I can't wait to see what Tomasz Jedrowski does next. And this was not a perfect book by any means. There were a few things that I didn't really love. Like I kind of felt like something was missing just a little bit, but it still connected with me in such a deep emotional way that I think you should definitely check it out. Okay, and then number 3, I have, this is a nonfiction book. It's called Boys and Sex, and it's by Peggy Orenstein. And this is exactly what it sounds like. There's a long subtitle, but I didn't write it down because I made this list kind of quickly. Well, I wrote it down quickly. It actually took me a long time to compile this list. But yeah, so it's literally exactly what the title sounds like. It talks about, you know, the culture of masculinity, how young men interact with sex, how they relate to it, how they feel about it. And so she conducted all these interviews with young men, and she kind of got them to open up a lot. And so this was just a really interesting read for me. And I'm really interested in sex education. That's something that I find very fascinating, especially since American public schools really fail on that front. So yeah, I just thought this was a really great book. And I know she also has one called Girls and Sex. I have not read that one, but I'm sure it's just as great. Okay, so number 2, this is technically a short story. I don't know if you could call it a novella, but this is Brokeback Mountain by Annie Proulx. And I adored this. I actually read it as part of her, it's a short story collection. I think it's called Wyoming Stories, something like that. But this was easily the best one in that collection. And I saw that it was published as a standalone, you know, like really slim book. I didn't read that edition, but I decided to include it on here because, you know, I read the story in a different volume, but I didn't really love the other stories in the collection. That was a lot of rambling, but I hope you understand what I mean. So I included this one. I'm sure that most of you have heard of this story before, mostly because it was turned into that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and somebody else. And the movie is really good as well, but I really, really liked the short story novella, whatever you want to call it. Again, it was very emotional, very sad, honestly, and I just really connected with it. Also, I'm a sucker for Cowboys. If you've been watching my channel, I'm sure you have already been able to tell that. So yeah, that's why that one made the list. And my last one, which is number 1, is IRL by Pico. This is a long form poem, and it kind of deals with a lot of different topics. It deals with queerness, indigeneity, you know, being an indigenous person, technology, social media. It deals with all kinds of interesting themes, and I think it handles them very well. I would highly recommend that you listen to the audiobook because that was what I did at first. And then I went out and I purchased the book as well. And I also purchased one of his other poetry collections called Junk, which I haven't read yet, but I'm sure it's going to be great. But, you know, if you're just reading the poetry, I think you can still get a good feel and a good understanding of the meaning and the depth of the work. But I think listening to it on audio really provides an extra layer of understanding, and it just makes it easier to connect with because you can kind of hear, he narrates it himself, and you can kind of hear his inflections and, you know, the way that it's meant to be read, I guess. So those are my favorite books of 2020. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know what your favorite books of 2020 were. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day.